Chicos and the Chicas. Playing a 15-10 game here. It's already started.
Hello to the Chicos and the Chicas indeed. Welcome to the party, ladies and gentlemen. Our friend today is going to be Hasan in the black trunks. As you can see, his rating is, you can't see it at the bottom of the screen, is 1775. And his opponent, Eureka444, is 1755 on chess.com. Today's game in the Coach Reacts video is going to be marginally different from the first two that I have done for the series, because I will probably stop the video on fewer occasions, and I will skip a fairly big chunk in the beginning. The reason for this is simply the nature of the game. It was a Caro-Kann that went into a rather uneventful middle game, which then transitioned into a very exciting end game, and so our attention is going to be focused on that. But here and there I'm going to offer a few pieces of advice along the way. So let's dig in. I'm going to begin by showing you the opening moves. It was a Tartakover Caro-Kann, a very popular line nowadays on club level. I believe that Erwin Lamy has got a very good chessable course on this setup. It's rock solid, it's very safe. I must add, it's also very boring and rather unambitious, but you win some, you lose some. And we are going to land right away in this funky scenario where a pair of rooks have already been traded off, and now the queen trade is also on. I am going to actually go all the way up to this point in the video, if I can find it, to see what our friend has to say about his thought process and what he was thinking in the game. So let's go. There we go. Let's go there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so if he plays nothing, like a a3, can I sack already? Takes, queen takes.
So, a couple of thoughts here. He said if he plays nothing, let's say a3, then I'm going to, can I take on h3? Now, there is something that I really like about this, and there's something that I really dislike about this. The part I like about it is that he's trying to establish if he actually has an ongoing threat by considering a null move, meaning something utterly meaningless in the position. The downside, of course, is that your opponent is going to play something, and so it's yeah, like I said, it's a plus and a negative at the same time. So once you establish whether you have a threat or a non-threat, or don't have a threat, either case, you really need to think about a move that you think is meaningful for white. But I would like to hear, check out the way how he talks about bishop takes h3, because I find it's quite interesting, and I think there are a few interesting things there that we need to take note of. So let's listen in.
I think I should bring the rook first. It seems a bit premature. Once that rook is on e8, that threat becomes even more, because he kind of has to move the queen. Takes, queen takes.
So I don't know now what he's calculating, right? Because he discussed bishop h3 for a brief moment. Then he went like, I think it's premature. I should bring the rook. I will show you this on the board rather. So he went like, yeah, if I take, and then pause, nothing, no evaluation. Might ring a bell from previous videos. Then he goes on to, yeah, I think I should play rook e8 first, which would create a very annoying discovered attack on the queen. And then he starts calculating again, bishop takes h3. I don't even know if he's now thinking if that were to happen after rook e8 and the supposed queen moves somewhere, or right now. But I'm guessing that he jumped back onto calculating bishop takes, pawn takes in the given position. So let's listen in again.
The knight moves, I have a devastating check here, but he can run with the king.
So this to me is absolute chaos. I have no idea what he's talking about here in terms of what's on the board. So he says that after takes, so I'm going to now have to play a no move, takes, queen takes. If the knight moves, hello, like the knight that defends the mate. And why would it move anyway? Like, this is the part that I'm often talking about in my videos, that you must have this desire to find the best move for your opponent. Like knight moves where? Here? Mate in 2. And then he adds to it that then he has the devastating check, but then the king runs. Runs where? It's mate in 2. So this is just total chaos on both levels, because first and foremost what we need to see here is that black actually doesn't have a threat at all. This sacrifice is totally and completely unsound. And the reason for that is that we don't have a threat and we don't really have a way to build this up. This is way too slow. That's 3 moves, because it's white to move now, and then we need to still play 2 more moves. Something like queen e4 with the idea of bishop f1 or queen f5 immediately destroys this attack, which, by the way, Hasan noticed correctly earlier on when he said that he felt that this was premature. But the calculation that came afterwards was a complete mess. So I don't know if he withheld there part of the things that was in his head, but he didn't communicate it, or what was going on there. But the calculation and the evaluation of the bishop takes h3 variation was very, very sloppy. Anyway, let's move on. And I think we are going to do a fairly big jump, although I took a note on minute 9, so I will jump to that. Because he says something about c3. I don't know what that is.
c3, that's not ambitious at all.
Huh.
c4 feels like the right.
Yeah, I like that comment actually. It's very, very good. I'm glad that I took a note, and I'm glad that I went back to this. So opponent ended up playing here c3. And he says that that's not ambitious at all. And I like it, and I also like the additional c4. Indeed, white in this structure would like to play c4 and try to utilize the queenside pawn majority. And that is a much more ambitious move for sure. So that's always very important, that you evaluate your opponent's moves as well as your own, so that you have a fair idea of what's going on in your own game. So kudos to Hasan for doing that. And I recommend all of you, especially in these positions where there is not a lot to choose between the two, to continuously keep an eye on who you think is better and why. Now, big jump. We are going to enter the endgame phase already, or rather a queenless middle game, a fair bit later. So I'm going to now make a big jump. And I will skip a few important events, but I will show it to you on the board momentarily. Actually, let's switch to the board. So what happened in the game here was actually quite chaotic from white's point of view, because after rook e8, which was played in the game, white simply blundered both of the discoveries by playing b3, and after bishop takes h3, a pawn just fell off the board, and now black is completely winning. Then trades begin, and I think this is where we enter the fray close-ish. Let's see. No, actually, I went a little bit ahead. So let's listen in.
If I go there, I'm not really... maybe I am threatening to take. It just destroys kingside pawn structure.
Very good thinking there.
Yeah, let's go there.
Okay, so actually I skipped this all together on the board when I went through the game. So here, he stops. He starts calculating where to bring the bishop back. Alright, you have to. The bishop is hanging, so we have got 1, 2, 3 moves. Bishop e6 looks utterly ugly and counterintuitive, but actually the engine reckons it's a good move. So he looks at bishop g4 and bishop f5. He says bishop g4 threatens to destroy the pawn structure. Then big silence, like we get nothing. No white move offered whatsoever. Once again, I have a feeling that Hasan didn't exactly communicate everything that was in his head. And then out of the blue, he just plays bishop f5. Like, based on what? Like, there was no reasoning whatsoever why we shouldn't do this. And then also no reasoning whatsoever why we should switch to that. And frankly, I don't see why bishop g4 is bad, because I totally agree with him. Bishop takes f3 is a very annoying threat, and there is no apparent good move to stop it other than knight h2, which is met by bishop f5, which we have when we have got a far favorable version of the game at our hands. So once again, the classic mistake, and I can't help but notice as I'm making this series, this is now 3 out of 3 videos when I find that people calculate moves and they don't evaluate them. And they don't even compare and contrast. Like, okay, bishop g4 has the benefit of taking here. Bishop f5 is going to offer a trade. Well, bishop g4 seems more annoying, so let's do that. Or something along these lines. No, we just look at bishop g4, yeah, it threatens, now let's just... This is not really a good way to think, because this way we don't really have a hierarchy of moves going from really good to really bad. It's just a middle ground where, okay, this looks safe, so I will do it. Don't do that. Okay, once again, big jumperino is coming. I think we're going to go up to 17 all the way. Let's see. He made a statement here.
If I take, knight takes,
that I want to reflect on.
I don't feel like I have much of an advantage.
You don't have much of an advantage? Really? Like, aren't we a pawn up? And how, like, I'm really confused about this evaluation here, because we just gained the pawn for free, right? At this point. So, when we took bishop h3, normally most people have a kind of like a relief type of feeling when they know that there is a drastic change in the game to their favor. Now, you can say that we are clearly better, or we are completely winning. I would say that neither of these statements are very far from the truth, probably somewhere in between, but definitely we are way ahead. Then we have got a couple of moves, we trade off a pair of bishops, and now we go from, well, more or less winning to not much of an advantage. Like, what happened? Like, did our pawn advantage evaporate, or why is it not a big advantage anymore? And the reason for this, I fear, or maybe I should rather say, I think, comes from the fact that club level players are very, very uncertain and not particularly confident in their endgame skills. Like, give me this endgame any day of the week, and I will be a happy boy. Like, this is a clear pawn up. And if circumstances are not really, really, really bad otherwise, pawn up should mean we are winning. So I don't know where this I don't have much of an advantage came from. And despite that, by the way, further trades are going to come, I believe. But more on that in a second. So let's see how the game continued. I want to show you a few more moves. So we went knight g6. Which, by the way, makes me wonder about... So rook e1 was not much of an advantage. But then if they take rook e8, then... Yeah, so that statement is just hanging in the air. Takes, takes, and queen e3. And here again comes one of the most instructive statements of the game as far as I'm concerned. Although you could argue that it has little relevance for the game, but I find it extremely educational. So let's have a look at what he has to say. Here.
Okay, might go your... Yeah, expected that.
So queen e3 came. Listen carefully.
Abandon the back rank.
That is such a very important statement. Listen to this again.
I can't abandon the back rank.
Can't abandon the back rank, he says. Me as a coach, I'm sitting here going like, what does that even mean? Like, this is the type of statement that I find an awful lot in club level players' games and mindset. And the real killer about this is that these are those perimeters that people like to create for themselves, so that they place themselves within the perimeter because they feel safe, and they create boundaries for themselves by generic statements like, I can't abandon the back rank. And from now on, they actually actively restrict their own thinking by these very, very artificial statements such as, I can't abandon the back rank. Like, what do you mean? Like, first of all, you have technically one legal move that abandons the back rank, because every other move keeps the back rank or moves up on the e-file, which is essentially a queen trade. So I don't understand why you would make that statement at all. Plus, on top of that, it's fundamentally wrong. Like, imagine that I could play here queen b2, right? I'm pulling it out of nowhere for argument's sake. I abandon the back rank. What's wrong? Like, there's no mate here. So why can't I abandon the back rank? So this is so utterly wrong on every possible level. And it might feel to you as a harmless thing to say, and what's the big deal? The big deal is that this betrays a thinking pattern that I was talking about 2 seconds ago when I said that setting these artificial parameters and restricting your own thinking is ridiculously harmful to your chess. Because basically you are ruling out moves by saying these things that otherwise are perfectly playable and in fact good. It's the exact same thinking pattern as they attacked my pawn, so I must defend it. Says who? Why? When? Like, what chess rule says that if you have a hanging pawn, you must defend it? And as soon as you say it in your head that I have a hanging pawn, or rather, sorry, excuse me, they attacked the pawn, so I must defend it, we now restricted ourselves from potential 10 candidates to 2. And we probably ruled out 5 really, really good moves, which wouldn't have defended the pawn, but would have been amazing. Same story with, oh, they are attacking it with 3, I'm guarding it with 3, so it's safe. No, it's not. It's not mathematics. It's chess, guys. Like, that doesn't work ever in chess, that it's guarded by 3, protected, but then it's safe. Like, the mere concept of tactics, which, by the way, great players say about 90% of chess, is based on the very idea that you cannot calculate in chess, or rather, you can't omit calculation by saying 3 guards, 3 attacks, it's okay. You need to calculate move by move. So these parameters that we create for ourselves so that we can actually stay within a reasonable number of moves and, you know, sort of thinking patterns, not gonna cut it. Don't do that to yourself, because not only does it restrict your thinking, but actually what it tends to happen a lot is that it rules out the good moves and actually leaves you with a few choices. Some are okay and the rest of them are really bad. So let's go on, move on and see what happens here in the game.
Completely, but that's, yeah. I think maybe getting the queen, avoid the queen trade. Yeah, let's go.
So he plays queen d7, which, by the way, the real irony is that it did abandon the back rank. And he said that he wanted to avoid a queen trade. No clue why. Like, why are we avoiding the queen trade? I'm really, really shocked by the fact that we have got an extra pawn, pieces are to be traded off, and we don't trade. And we do it, by the way, at the cost of giving up the only open file, which, by the way, is largely theoretical and not really of practical relevance, because there is no penetration square whatsoever. But still, why don't we take? It's a completely winning endgame. You are a pawn up. Just go for it. And I'm going to show you later on how simply and easy it would be to win the endgame. And now we are going to have a fair bit of moves played. What I find really interesting is the fact that he actually ends up here after playing queen d7 g3. He actually ends up going to e6, recognizing the mistake of abandoning the e-file and reoffering the queen trade. Having said that, he does it so because now after queen takes, the pawns get straightened out. And I would like to clear this up for the umpteenth time, because it just seems to me that this is one of the greatest mysteries in chess that almost all club level players utterly and fundamentally misunderstand, and this is the mystery of the double pawns. So this sort of movement indicates to me that Hasan was under the impression that this endgame was really difficult to win, if at all possible, whereas this endgame is super easy to win. And in my opinion, there is absolutely no difference whatsoever between the two. And I show you why, in my opinion, it's a super easy win to win an endgame like queen e3, let's say bishop e3. You have got 4 versus 2 on one side, and we have got 4 versus 3 on the other. Now, white's only way to create a pass pawn is to play c4, d5, which is going to create a situation where white has got a pass pawn already blockaded, it's isolated, it's weak as heck. So the way I would play this is that I would play knight e7, and after c4, I would immediately launch a pawn storm like crazy on the king side where I have my pawn majority. And as I'm looking at it in my head, when I see this position, by the way, what I have in my head is that my pawns are going to go like my knight is going to go to f5, g5, g4, h5, potentially move the knight away, f5, f4, and so on. But actually, this becomes even more relevant in this position. So let me show you the whole idea here. You come back, they do whatever, g5. Now, if they play g4, you play h6, f5. And then you will have 3 versus 1, instant kill, no question. And otherwise, we are just going to roll up, king up, pawn h6, f5, g4, or even h6, f5, g4, knight g6, f4. And the pawn, I'm just going to show you this because it's such a lovely way to progress. I'm just going to play passes here so that you are going to see the point. And you are going to break the pawns here. You are going to break the pawns here. And yes, temporarily it may be blockadable, but now we come in from this end. So the pawn formation, and now I haven't even brought my king up. It is just an absolute knockout with the extra pawns. No problems whatsoever. And also I didn't show you the very simplistic f5, knight g6, f4 operation, which also allows the trade of the double pawns, the dreaded double pawns, which are very useful here, by the way, to go forward with f4. So this is just completely winning. All right, let's have a look at what happened the game, because now we are going to witness a few slightly tragic events. I'm going to accelerate a little bit, and we are going to go to about here-ish. There. Here-ish.
Yeah, g5. Why not? Supposed to push pawns in endgames, right?
I really like the fact that he found g5. You are supposed to push pawns in endgames, especially where your majority is. And the main point, of course, here behind g5 is that we are threatening to gain space with g4 and again play for h4, h5. So this is great stuff. Now let's continue.
c4, we just drop back again. e4, we take.
So that's c5 and d5, not 4, but that's all right. Notice this a lot happening, by the way. That when we play black, we miscall the squares.
I mean, g5, the purpose was to just attack the knight, but we also get to create some loft.
Yeah, very good, and you should bring up the king too, if allowed.
We control the e-file, or we at least contest the e-file, but I don't think it's...
I'm waiting for the blunder now. Wow, the opponent sat here for so long. Look at that. I'm forwarding, and not finally they play bishop e3 here. And this is the key moment of the game, because here something funny is happening. And the something funny is the fact that if you look at the black pieces, now there is an extremely good synergy and cooperation among the 3 black pieces raining down onto the white army, and somehow it just feels wonky. And of course, the refutation is an immediate tactic. However, when you are playing a game that has been very, very positional in nature, for the most part at least, and has been in an endgame for the last 20 moves, it's often quite difficult to switch out of that endgame mode into, hey, there is tactics here. But actually that's the case, and here bishop takes g3 immediately would have decided the game. Because white just loses another pawn for absolutely nothing. Now, this is a little bit of an obscure tactic, but when your opponent walks into the firing range of your pieces, you should check if there is something available on the horizon or not. Now, in the game, we play g4, which incidentally still allows bishop takes g3 to be the killer blow, but instead we took d4, which by the way is also a free pawn, so I have to give credit for to Hasan for doing that. We played c5, and here I would like to show you what happened, because this is a very educational moment as far as this endgame is concerned. So big jump forward again, queen h1. Okay, let's see what it says.
Any threat? Not that I can see.
I must add though to Hasan's defense here that right now both players are down to 2 minutes each. We are playing some kind of an increment. I think it's a 10-10 or a 15-10. So there is increment, but there is also time ticking away. So life is a little bit trickier now, but still, let's just go with what's happening.
What b5 here? b5 takes, queen d5 check, king moves, take the queen, take the pawn, up 2 pawns. I think now trading the queens is fine. He has no more potential of that pass pawn. b4.
5.
Should probably hurry up. Yeah, let's go b4.
Okay, so this is a very unfortunate moment in the game because of the time pressure, but still we absolutely have to take note of this b5 idea. If we really want to be honest with ourselves and we look at this as an outsider, we must admit that b5 does absolutely nothing. And unfortunately, this is a typical case of hope chess, when Hasan only reckons with pawn takes b5, excuse me, which would be indeed quite good for us. Although, even here, after takes queen d5, he was proposing the idea of the queen trade, which would have isolated pawn and would have made this game an absolute hell to win. But the worst part of this whole thing is that b5 is an absolute pass move of the highest order. Like, white doesn't have to respond at all. We are not threatening to take, and so we just did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And by the way, we are totally playing the game on the wrong side of the board. Like, we have got 4 pawns here against 2, and we are pushing here. Why? Like, yeah, I get it that it's very attractive that if they take, then we have the check. But first of all, why would they take? Second of all, what will we do if they don't? So that was a very, very curious moment, and sadly one that kind of put the game on the wrong path. Here, knight f5, in my opinion, is by far the cleanest win, when all of a sudden this bishop has no squares. That's it. And no matter what white does next, excuse me, we're going to take the bishop. And that's just game over. Keep it simple is definitely your #1 principle in such scenarios. f5 is also quite playable, but this doesn't necessarily create an immediate threat. So I would have definitely gone with knight f5. And from here on out, your basic rule of thumb is to keep it simple. And now, unfortunately, the trend continues to go downhill.
Queen there.
Rather, I should say that the downhill trend continues. So that was a very, very sad, panic-driven move there with queen f5. So all of a sudden we are very aware of the time situation, which is 1:30 on the clock. Still plenty of time. But now we simply just blunder that after take, the b5 pawn is hanging. Both b takes c4 or b4, fixing the problem that we created for ourselves, would have sufficed with the idea of queen f5 next. I know it's very difficult and it's easy to say, but you must remain reasonably calm, especially when there is increment on the clock. This is a big issue that I have with a lot of my students when they talk to me about time trouble in increment games. When you are a pawn up like this and you have got increment on the clock, as long as we don't blunder on the board something major, it's impossible to lose as far as I'm concerned. And it's a very, very good mentality to acquire, however hard it may sound. And I know that there is stress, there is nerves, there is all the above, but this is it. Like, we need to get used to it. I don't think that it's particularly challenging with 1:35 on the clock, or at least this should be the goal, to be like that mentally, that with 1:35 on the clock and with 10 seconds increment, we can actually afford calculating the one simple line, which is that after take, this hangs. And also to notice that right now white doesn't have a threat. There is no queen checks anywhere, and so we have time to play b4 and then queen f5. Let's move on.
I'm blundering this pawn, but it's for the queen trade, I think.
Yeah, that's not a good justification here, unfortunately, but let's move on.
I'm gonna get to trade the bishop, end up with the bishop versus knight. I rushed this move.
Yep.
But yeah, there was no need. I could have just taken and then played this.
So that's actually a really good sign that Hasan himself recognizes that he rushed the move. So he's already aware during the game what he did wrong, and not so much the fact that he blundered. Like, he's aware of the shortcoming that was more of a strategical component of the way how he handled himself, not the game, which was that he played too fast. It's good self-awareness.
But it's fine. Takes. Before I played it, in my head I'd calculated takes. Okay, queen trade, mission accomplished. But I stopped before calculating
the classic stopping too soon.
I mean, low on time. I can't calculate everything. Yeah, should have spent a few seconds on that.
Yeah,
just taken first, but it's all good.
Actually, I hate to tell you, but this is not all good anymore. To win this position now is an absolute nightmare. And the other problem is that now this requires a huge mental shift. Like, now you really do need time to actually figure out what's going on. The evaluation has dropped from -4 to -0.1. Essentially, it's dead draw now. And it's not so hard it's not so hard to see even for a human that now this is isolated. Knight c4 is going to be a monster. There's a pass pawn potential here. If anything, with limited time, black even has to watch out here for survival.
Takes. No, I want to take this? Yeah, that's obvious. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna take that. This, let's go there.
Okay, so here, despite being aware of the previous mistake, playing too fast when playing queen f5, and having now 1:40 on the clock, Hasan again is playing extremely fast. So let's have a look at what's going on in this endgame. When you look at this position, you realize once again that the number one problem is this: knight c4, a4, a5, b6. The only way to meet that and to avoid that being a winning threat for white is to run for the hills with your king like there was no tomorrow. And whilst f5 doesn't ruin the game yet, but it's certainly the first step towards turning this draw to a loss. And actually king f8, is an extremely natural and logical way to play the endgame, because we need the king, and if you look at where we need the king, it's very clear that we need them on the queen side to assist the defense. f5 was still fine. Now look at the speed with which the next three moves are being played.
Knight c4, yeah, I'm gonna just bring this back.
Yeah, that's nothing wrong with there. So we are sort of trying to hold a4, a5, b6 at least. And we play king g7. Oh, sorry, I wasn't putting the video on the screen. Let's do that again. I will just show you that, sorry. So we played f5, the bishop dropped back to c7, opponent plays a4. Apologies for that, I sometimes forget switching between the scenes. And look at this now. King g7. Cool, Wadis is the Latin expression, I believe, for this one, which means, where are you going? And that's a big philosophical question, but here I would like to stay with chess purely. Where are we going? King g7. Now, there is this concept in every single endgame that the king must be centralized, right? That's a very generic statement. Remember the perimeters and the boundaries I was telling you about? That's one of those. Bring the king to the center. We don't bring the king to the center for no reason. It's because usually it stands there really well. Now, our king in this particular case does not do an awful lot if I bring it to e6. Where I need it to be is like here, because I need assistance with holding up this pawn mass supported by the knight. And we just can't get there, and king g7 actually is a borderline losing move here, because now, and this wasn't played in the game, after a5, king f6, which was played in the game, b6 takes, we have got a6. And that's an oopsie daisy. A pretty big one, actually. Bishop b8 is the better move, by the way. But even here, now we are fighting for survival. Well, by the way, this one actually does lose, because now we go here, here, a7, and we win the bishop. Now, king f8 would have fixed this problem, if I recall rightly, because after a5, king e7, b6 takes, a6, bishop b8, knight b6. As you can see, we just managed to shield the c8 square, and the knight is out. Now, you could argue that there is no way that even high-rated players would be able to calculate that with extremely limited time, and you would be right. However, it is crystal clear, even to very low-rated players, that the action is happening here, and so the king needs to run this way, not this way. And so, right or wrong, we need to try to do the best and bring the king across, and we will see what happens, was definitely the correct policy. Now, the game ended in a very interesting fashion, which I will show you, although the rest is not as educational as the previous bits were. b6 takes, b6 was played, bishop b8, and we are headed here for a marvelous draw, by the way. King e6, knight c6, bishop away, b7, all of this is forced. King d7, promote, and the knight gets trapped in, and the game is a draw. Quite a spectacular finish, by the way, and kudos to Hasan for finding this very nice finish in the end. I will show you just so that you get to enjoy his mastery. And by the way, the players didn't slow down at all, so actually they accumulated quite a bit of time. So Hasan is back to 2.5 minutes, and so is his opponent. Once again, I forgot to turn the scene back on. But yeah, a super interesting game with I don't know if this was necessarily a fair outcome. I think that it's very unfortunate that Hasan didn't win this game. He was definitely winning for the most part, but chess tend to be rather cruel that way, and that is our draw. So the takeaways from this game for Hasan, I would say, would be most definitely the usual, and I'm referring here to the bishop h3 calculation from the very beginning, that please evaluate lines when you are calculating them. Same goes for the bishop f5 decision here. There was no evaluation attached to the bishop g4 idea. In fact, there was no line even given. So that was that. The endgame was totally misjudged here by queen takes e3, which definitely should have happened as a trade, and then a comfortable, really comfortable and problem-free win in that pawn-up endgame scenario. And most importantly, and this is a very generic advice, but in my opinion probably the most powerful one from this lesson, is to do not restrict yourselves with statements like "I can't abandon the back rank." This is not useful at all, and it is just going to hinder your thinking and just restrict what you're considering, moves that you are considering, and potentially preventing you from recognizing great sources just because of you set these really artificial and perfectly useless, fences around your thinking, like, oh, I can't abandon the back rank. So definitely no such things should ever be existing in your thinking. I always aim to do, and recently I'm pushing even harder for this than ever before, that statements like these should always be cancelled out by lines. You can't abandon the back rank. Really? Okay, let's see if I do. Prove me wrong. And that's what you are telling yourself. So instead of doing that, let's go queen d7, which does abandon the back rank. Is it bad? No. And immediately we just absolutely destroyed the previous statement. Yes, you can abandon the back rank. So there we go. So that was that. And for the end game, it was a bit unfortunate. We could have won g3, but we won d4. That was fine. And this, in my opinion, was a very telling moment. So I feel like a little bit of panic kicked in here, but also this whole b5 idea was just fundamentally wrong. Fundamentally wrong. Playing on the wrong side of the board, playing a move that does nothing, playing hope chess, and just really not taking into consideration the specifics of the position, such as the fact that the bishop on e3 is completely stuck, and after knight f5 it has nowhere sensible to go, and obviously a trade will mean that once again we are headed for a 2 pawns up, very clean endgame win. Despite all this, I feel like Hasan should have got a win out of this game. It's a little bit unfortunate that he didn't, but such is chess. That was, I suppose, the price to pay for this lesson. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this video. I have got many more videos lined up in this series. Thank you very much once again for your submissions. Please be patient. I know that many of you have already sent videos to me a month ago. It takes a fair while for me to watch the videos, take notes of what points to stop. This particular series is very time consuming, so I would like to ask you to bear with me. There will be more to come. Thanks for now for watching. Don't forget to like, to comment, to sub, to super like if you can, and I will see you in the next video. Cheerio. Bye.